television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, C Love World, LCBNTV.com, LifeComTV.com.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Lydia. Today I've got a lady who I've worked quite closely with over the last 3 years. Her name is Sandra Powell, and we're going to talk about children and counseling with children and the necessity for it. I'll read through her bio and then I'll introduce her and she'll join me in the conversation. Sandra Powell is a Christian. She holds 2 degrees and a very recent MA diploma in clinical supervision. She's an integrative transpersonal psychotherapist and has been practicing for nearly 10 years. She runs her own private practice and she's currently working with a secondary school and is a member of the Grenfell Inquiry mental health support team. Her clients are vast and varied, with people of all faiths or none, and diverse backgrounds. She works with children, young adults, right up to an elderly age, couples and families. Her areas of experience and expertise include and continue to expand, working with identity, self-esteem, spiritual / religious self-harm, and relational challenges to meet the diverse needs of the client. I welcome Sandra.
Hi.
Hi, Sandra.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Do you want to share a little bit of yourself, or you think your bio does it?
I think the bio covers quite a bit. I think when I was glimpsing over the short paragraph, I thought, okay, we can either be here all day or I could just, put this in one and send it across to give you just a fair idea. There are a few other things that I have actually done that are outside of counseling, which is I've run a family business, IT business, with my family for over 10 years, so to speak. It was an accredited IT center, and I've done different things, but worked with the church, for the church, and also I don't know how, I think I stumbled into it, but I ran a few cafeterias in several different building sites, so to speak. So I think I'm the kind of person that just puts my hand to the plow when I need to. Yeah.
And if I ask you why, out of all these sort of diverse gifts and things that you're very capable at doing, why, I can imagine that along the way you were training to be a counselor, working, going to school, like most of us did. I think that was the route for most of us. Why do you think now you settled with counseling? It doesn't mean you're letting go of all the other things, but it just means that, this is you.
Yeah, and I think that, I think that answers it in one. This is me. I had a heart for counseling. I mean, I didn't mention some of the other things that I've done, but I looked at it, and I also work with the Anthony Nolan Bone Marrow Trust, that type of thing. I find that a lot of the work that I've done in the past is service work, is helping people. And I recall years ago, many moons now, without giving away my age, but I wanted to get involved in psychology and you know, become a psychotherapist and help. And I stepped out in my younger years and started out with the well, I went back to school, so to speak, and started out doing some psychology courses and counseling courses, so to speak. And it was quite heartbreaking because the people I was trying to train with, I would say, were sort of middle upper class, mature ladies who had their ideas and their ideals about how these things work and who people are and what they're about. And I found myself struggling to connect with how they think. I think because my background was so different to theirs, I felt I was more somebody that was literally brought up on the ground, hearing and knowing and recognizing and experiencing all of what goes on out there. I just felt that they didn't have a clue. And so I struggled in the classrooms. I walked away from it in the end because I felt I want to do this, but it doesn't feel like this is for me. Not at that stage of my life anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and actually one of the aims of this program, if you like, is to bring more of an awareness of counseling for people in the BAME community, so that we sort of can use that as a tool to improve our lives. And if you know, when you were talking about starting, you know, your training and being sort of in classrooms with older, middle-aged white women, which sort of, I think, I see us, when I mean us, I mean therapists of color now, trying to build a bridge between, you know, that kind of thinking around therapy and counseling, and trying to bring it, you know, be the bridge makers to our own people, making them know that, you know, this is something that they can use and this is a tool. It will be an advantage for, you know, for our people to get into it. What has been your experience, you know, working with either our groups or, you know, other groups of people?
The experiences have varied. And I think it's interesting because I've been blessed enough to be able to work with various people from different cultures, and I find that those who, you know, though, as in we call them BAMEs, I think you know, but people of color, they tend to want to work with people of color. And I found that when they have discovered, so suppose they've not seen a picture of myself, that type of thing, and they've spoken to me on the phone, and they've discovered that I am a woman of color, they've been actually really quite relieved, quite happy, engaged, even more so all of a sudden. I think you can also tell from my voice as well. Sometimes they pick it up there. You know, they're sort of more, and shall I say, they've expressed that they feel more at ease.
And do you think they feel better understood, or they feel they will be better understood by somebody of color? Or
so for the reasons why they feel at ease is definitely because I've, you know, I've had it said many a time, I don't feel like I'll have to explain everything in detail to you. And there are some things that I just know that you'll just get it.
Mhm,
So,
mhm,
there's that. So I think that sort of sums it up. Sometimes it's this way in which they recognize that you will be able to relate to them, sometimes without them even having to say, what the whole thing is. You'll
mhm,
be able to relate.
mhm. So they would feel more able to share maybe some experiences about culture, about racism, without feeling the other person may not really get what I'm talking about, or would be resistant to the idea if a black person says, actually, I think all white people are racist. A big statement like that.
Which this is the thing. It's being able. The most important thing that a counselor can provide, or a psychotherapist can provide, is a safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
And most definitely, as you stated, with any counselor, you should still be able to express that if you want to. But I think it makes it, I think they don't find that they will need to rescue me, be extra tentative in how they say it, or what would be quite sad is not be able to say it. But there's this thing of where you're having to gently tread on eggshells because you're not wanting to come across as racist yourself or aggressive or whatever other names that are attributed to us once we start talking about race.
Okay. We're going to move away slightly and talk about something I think is a specialism for you, which is working with children. How old are the children you work with?
So I work with children at the moment, secondary school children. So children from the age of 11 right onwards. So because I'm in the school, I see the children of all ages in secondary school. But I have worked with children who are much younger as well.
And do you feel children, I know you're working, but I'm going to ask you what a layman's question would be. Do you feel children need counseling?
I definitely, I do feel, I feel that all children, I believe that all children, they need mentoring,
Mm-hmm.
they need um, positive encouragement, coaching, and yes, there are times in a child's life or some experiences that children go through whereby I would say that yes, counseling as a means of mental health support or emotional well-being is needed.
Do you not think that this can be given by parents alone?
Parents alone. Parents wear so many hats and they're having to be not only counselors, but counselors, teachers, health specialists. A parent is everything to their child. They are. But sometimes there are difficulties, as in there are things, for example, that you can experience in a family unit. So where we talk about this thing of births, deaths, and marriages, and unfortunately sometimes divorce. And let's take divorce for an example. It's a hard, messy, painful situation sometimes for some families. And what you might find could happen is a breakdown in communication. There could also be areas of conflict going on. And I think sometimes it's hard enough, or from what I've heard and experienced with couples going through divorces, it's hard enough for them to go through what they're going through, and to hold a handle on all of what's going on with the family. So sometimes they find it difficult to communicate. They find it hard to communicate. So they themselves are actually going through the process of the divorce and what comes with it themselves. So sometimes they're unable to be able to counsel the child. There's another thing is sometimes what's happening with the child may try to rescue the parent depending on what's going on in the house. A household could be very busy. There could be all sorts of things going on. There may be other children who might have like challenges, physical challenges, that sort of thing. Things that demand a lot of time away from a child, and by all means, by no fault of the parent, but again, the parent may not have the time, inclusive of all of what they've got to do with what society demands with work and everything, to sit and counsel the child.
Does that sound to the parent like they're not enough? They're not good enough. They're not being a good enough parent, and they failed somewhat.
Definitely not. Definitely not. If we look at these things, there are, if we look at good enough, even as counselors, the one thing that we're having to, when they say that we have to get ourselves to a place of where we feel like we're good enough, and it's and it's an important factor for us to believe and keep in mind. And I could understand how it could be challenging for the parent, because it's like, okay, if they feel like they're handing over their child for somebody else to parent, then I can see where they perhaps maybe they may feel that way. But it would help if they, got an understanding, and if it was explained to them what counseling is about. So that's the most important thing, coming together, and for them for counselors to give the parents, a good idea of what counseling is about, what types of things that you may be looking at, and how you may work with their child. And they'll see that actually it is different. We're not taking on the role of a parent when we get into the counseling room.
Because it's quite scary. I remember earlier on, I used to work with quite young children in primary school, and their parents sometimes would ring me, wait outside the counseling room. I want to know what their child had told me. And it almost felt like I was taking, their child away from them. Somehow I seemed to be representing a better parent than they were doing. So how, I know you explained a bit about, explaining to the parent how this is not necessarily the case. What do you think, if you were saying to a parent whose child is disruptive, never been, but they're going through something, maybe the parent doesn't realize that they're going through, say, something like cyberbullying or bullying in school, and they haven't shared this with mom or dad or anybody. And school now says to the parent, oh, we've got a counselor and we've referred your child. Yeah. What do you think we can say to a parent to make them feel, actually, this might be a good thing?
So I can think of an example. I can think of when they referred a child. There was a child that was referred to me, and her mother had asked to have a conversation with me prior to her agreeing for her child to have counselling. And I agreed to have the conversation with her. And it's quite interesting, because what I could pick up was that, was exactly as you're saying. There's those, is that apprehension, and then there's the feeling of, who am I handing, well, quite rightly, who am I handing my daughter over to? And feelings of her expressing certain things that made me perhaps maybe, made me pick up that perhaps maybe there were feelings of inadequacy there. But it was, I think for one, I think what I always want to assure the parent or anybody that I'm counseling who's feeling that way is that counselors' lives or therapists' lives are not perfect. And not even as parents. So even a counselor may struggle to get through to their own child. And, and it's through it doesn't necessarily have to be through the fault of the parent. It doesn't have to be down to the person not having good parenting skills, or definitely not being a bad parent, so to speak, which is an awful label. But just to assure them that, to be honest with you, I am going to put my training to use. I have been trained in particular areas, and what I'm going to do is put it to use, see if I can build a relationship with your daughter, just to allow her the space to talk about anything, to talk about anything. And it's not my aim to to basically paint you in a bad light, or and it's not our position to be able to do so either. It's not professional. But I'm just here to listen and to hear what she has to say, and hopefully with my training ears be able to hear what she's not saying. But that will be down to my training.
So it's letting the parent know that this is something my skill allows me to do.
Yes.
I'm not wanting to be your child's parent. I'm not hoping to be your child's parent. I'm not using it to critique you. I'm just support that your child needs along their journey of life for now.
Yeah. And also to encourage her, because I said to her, I really appreciate, and it tells me who you are. As a parent, that you're questioning what's going to happen here, what's going to go on here, what part am I playing? It's good. I usually embrace, and I would welcome a parent talking to me and wanting to know things. Then of course, obviously, there's areas and there are boundaries of what I will share, because it's supposed to be a safe space for the child, and there's a certain amount of confidentiality, depending on the child's age group, such and such. And of course, you'll have once you're working in school, there will be other welfares involved, but of course it's a safe space. So I welcome parents who are wanting to know about therapy, what will go on, what's the procedure. I really do. And usually I can actually put them at ease, and by saying to them, no, I appreciate it. It also tells me what kind of parent you are. The fact that you want to know about this, you want to know what's going on.
An indication of good parenting to question, who is this stranger who is going to be in the room with my child? I'm curious as to what happens.
Yeah.
Do you think counseling, on the onset when a child isn't feeling quite themselves or is acting out in school, like a preventative way to stop that behavior escalating. Because sometimes we feel that they will only need, sometimes a child is progressively in trouble and then at one point seems, I don't want to use the word out of control, but parents can't do much, school can't do anything, the child is now being excluded, or sometimes even taken away from home. Do you think counseling can be used, to prevent that outcome?
Oh, it's a pretty big question. I haven't worked with children who have been excluded. And I'm sure perhaps maybe therapists who work with children who have been excluded probably could be best prepared and informed about how to answer that. But I can say that an intervention, any intervention that will allow a child to be able to express themselves, as I said once again, provide a safe environment for them to be able to express themselves, talk about what is really going on for them, explore what might be, explore whilst working with them in different ways. It could be through art therapy, music therapy, but, get them to express in some way what's going on, but explore with them in different ways. How, like, even encourage them. So encourage them to be able to explain what is going on for them, express what's going on for them, show what's going on for them, act out, because that's what they're doing. They're acting out. So, if they can do that in therapy, it will, it will inform us better as to what might be going on for them. And again, then put the correct, intervention strategies, help, support, whatever it is that they need, put that in place before that happens. Now, I would imagine even when it has happened, I can still see a place for therapy. I can still see where there's a place for it, because if you think about it, there are so many different types of therapy. And if the child is trying to show you in their way, because, we have adults who are not emotionally intelligent, and that's no disrespect to adults. But I'm saying that perhaps maybe for all sorts of reasons to do with, culture, our class, our race, home culture, our upbringing, we may not have been privy to somebody expressing their emotions and how they feel, and that type of thing. So it may be that the child doesn't, they don't know how to do this, and it may come out in all different ways. So if a child is, just to sort of extend, if a child is extremely angry inside, we all know how that can, yeah, but it can also, so as you said, in terms of escalate, what would happen is if it's not being dealt with, and they're not even, they're not having a place for them to be able to share it, talk about it, even make sense of what's going on for them, then that just builds up inside. It builds up inside, and it will come out somewhere. It will come out somewhere. So I can see where it would be, really helpful for them to have counseling, even when it has gotten to that stage. And I can see it, being even more helpful as an intervention prior to, hopefully to nip it in the bud, as we would say, to, to try and see if we can turn it around.
Because I think as we all have discovered, that counseling is a good intervention tool. So I'm thinking of a child who maybe the parents are separated or divorced, has issues or feelings around that wasn't expressed. Then maybe grandma or grandpa was a safe place. That grandpa dies or grandma dies, and then they're bereaved. But everybody assumes a child doesn't have those kind of deep feelings, and this child is carrying all of this pain, and somehow it comes out. Either they end up being medicating it with drugs, or sort of finding solace in gangs, or finding, or just being angry and expressing it in a way. So how can parents pick up the signs? Say, I know parents want the best and feel sometimes they can fix, everything. So how can parents think, this might be a good idea for this child or for my child?
This might be and when you say this might be, sorry, plug this in. When you say this,
what I should say is,
yeah,
if I'm a parent, and my
Yeah.
child is angry, or grandma has passed and they seem very sad, and I've tried, we've spoken about it, but I feel there is some part of them that I'm not getting to. Now, how, or for an adult would say, what are the symptoms, for example, of somebody who may be depressed? So for an adult person, you would probably be able to reel off, or I would be able to reel off. But for somebody with a child, how can you suspect or know that the child is angry or depressed, or so is in some kind of pain, or has some deep emotion that then I'm not able to reach as a parent?
I think, to be honest with you, that in itself is actually quite wide, and there's lots of different angles I could come from with that. But for the sake of time, there is no one thing. I think the first thing to recognize is, if for a parent is if you are experiencing something, and and they differ, and they are different things and different emotions and pain, then you can almost bet that 100% so is your child. Because they would have been, they would have been exposed to that exact same thing as you. So if you as an adult, the way for you to be in tune is in terms recognizing what might be going on for somebody else, is really, it's important that you recognize what's going on for you. And if I can take it back a little bit, when we look at this thing of, never underestimate what sitting at that table, if you possibly can, and when you sit at a table and have dinner with your children, eating with your children, and of course, being a Christian, I'd say praying with the children. But that table is actually sitting at that table and eating and sharing, because of course, parents get a chance to, or the parent gets a chance to, model what it is to be able to sit and talk and embrace and share and debate and discuss. And if we could do that with our children from very early on, they get into the habit of being able to do that. And if we are able to sometimes even share with them now and again about how something has made us feel, or how we might have dealt with something, or how we developed some, how we coped with something, they themselves can start to question and ask questions about those things. And, and start to learn from there that that's the type of thing that you do. And those are the things that you use to implement you know, implement your thought processes into recognizing this is what's going on for me. I need to speak to somebody, and a parent letting a child know that it's okay to share and to talk. Those things are helpful. But if we come to, as you were saying, about looking for the signs, children become introverted, sometimes as a sign. Their moods change. Sometimes, so sometimes they withdraw, their moods change a bit. Children will look at you, and if they see that something is difficult for you to talk about, they become rescuers. So they're trying to do everything for you. So anything that you see that you recognize that might be a little bit different than they would in how they would be normally, and it's ongoing, start to take notice. But I'm assuming, as I said before, if you're going through something, it's more than likely they are going through something. So it would be good to catch it quite early on, and don't underestimate your instincts as a parent, because as a counselor, it's interesting. We have to try to do this with our skills, with your child and not knowing your child. You're a step ahead of us. What we have to do is we have to try and, gain some sense of immediacy, an immediacy about what also, gather a feel of also what could be going on for the child. Whereas with you as a parent, instinctively, you probably would also be able to feel that something is not quite right here. If you do, ask yourself, what is it that I am feeling more than anything else? And I can almost guarantee that you probably might be able to pick it up. It could be some fear. It could be like anger. It could be something that you're thinking, I'm picking something up here. What is it? And then you can approach. Now, this is the thing with parents. I'm not saying, I'm feeling anger. Come and tell me what's going on.
You must be angry.
Be careful. I would say gently just start to say, this has been hard, what's going on for us in here. And sometimes I feel myself, sometimes I'm really annoyed, or I get a bit scared. How about you? How do you feel about this? I don't know if that's helpful.
Oh, yes, because what you're saying is, if I can feel the pain and I can feel the anxiety, I can't discount my child has those same feelings. So if something tough has really happened, if there's divorce or separation, somebody's passed, if I feel it, the child feels it. I think a lot of times we don't acknowledge that children have these kind of feelings. We just sometimes think, well, they're children, they were okay, they were playing in the next room, they didn't really get what was happening. But what you're saying is, if we can feel it, they can feel it. So we don't discount that they're entitled to feelings. I think sometimes we think children are just happy. They don't feel the really big emotions we feel, like fear or anxiety or pain or bereavement. We just think they're either happy or it's something very simple, like somebody didn't give them sweets or something like that. So that's been useful. I'm going to ask, do you find, from your experience, working with Christian parents are more challenging than working with non-Christian parents?
So I know I'm going to have to be very careful here. So what come chasing me?
Oh, do you want me to rephrase the question?
No, actually, I suppose because I work in schools mainly. I guess that same parent, actually, the one who I told her I commended her to come into me to speak to me about it, she was Christian. She was a Christian, and I do feel that. So what was good was I was able to tell her also as well, because she said we're a Christian family, and she started to explain that there are some things that she might feel, and then I was able to put her mind at ease, because I said to her, well, I'm also a Christian. And when I say I was able to put her mind at ease, I said to her I'm also a Christian, and then it did more put her mind at ease. But there was the area of some pauses and some silences with, and sort of explanations, as in, but we do go to church, and, and I do ensure that she does come to church. And, and as a family, we do sit down and we do pray together. And, it's not like we haven't been praying about this. And I felt that, I think I felt it, in my heart for her, because we can begin to feel inadequate, so it's like a double whammy for Christians. It's almost like, as a parent and as a Christian, it may appear as though, I don't like to use the word failing, but I'm not doing as I should. So I can see where it probably could be even more difficult for a person of faith, because we're always told, just, a lot of the time we're told to just pray about it, and, have we been teaching our children the word, and, have the children been attending church, and do we ensure that they, that they're reading the word every day? And then it becomes this thing of, it's almost like, used sometimes, unfortunately, as a set of rules, to like a beating stick against the parent. And so I could imagine that would create some reluctance in a Christian parent coming forward. And also in terms of the belief, it's like their beliefs might be challenged also, as well, as it is with sickness is a good example of that, isn't it, really? You'll be healed. You just got to believe that, God says by your stripes we are healed, that sort of thing. And that can be really hard on people. So yes, if we do, if we're not, it's that thing of not casting the stone after the parent, that type of thing, would help, in our environment as, as Christians. It would help parents to feel more at ease to come forward. But I would say that, yeah, that could cause the reluctance amongst other things. It could be a bit of a double whammy for parents of faith. Is it easier for them to? So that might be the resistance, but I do. Going on from that, I'm not sure what you were going to ask me next, but when it does come together, again, like I said, I run a private practice, so I sometimes have parents who contact me direct, and, and so we work together a little bit more. So that doesn't mean that I go back and I say, oh, and in the session, your daughter da-da-da-da, or your son da-da-da-da, whatever. It's not that. It's it's being able to say, well, let's stand in prayer for that. Let's believe for that. Let's trust God for that. Let's trust that, because I always try to say to the parent, let's trust that God will use me in the way that he needs to, with the Holy Spirit being our counselor and our guide, and parents, Christian parents, can tend to be quite comforted by that. Let's trust that the Holy Spirit will work through me to work, and
So,
that.
so I was going to ask a slightly different question, but we'll come back to just what you've said, because I think that is the crux of it, in our way of working as Christians, using really the person who is the counselor and the standby. So you're just sitting there, and the Holy Spirit is doing the work. But I was going to ask if you feel some of the resistance is actually attached to this stigma attached to mental health in general, because now you failed as a parent, you failed as a Christian. And there's also this big thing also attached to saying, you know what, I'm seeing a counselor, or my child is seeing a counselor. Does that mean that they're unwell?
Again, sometimes I find it difficult to sort of just answer the question direct, because once when you're speaking to me, there are things that are coming in my head. Like, for instance, my past church, that I was with for so many years, very much believed in counseling. And my church was predominantly made up of Ghanaian, Nigerian demographics. So, very much. And we also had a counseling center. So a lot of that, and my pastor's wife, she's a qualified counselor as well too, and a really good one. And she spent so much time, opening up opening up the arena for people to talk about these things. And even you could see, that she was a counselor. You could see and hear she was, even for when she, with her sermons, and it was so helpful for to open up the way for people to accept and engage in counseling. And people were very comfortable with bringing their children to the counseling center, because it was counselors. 2, it was run by their pastor. 3, it was a professional environment also as well. It wasn't pastoral, because there is a difference between the two, and there's nothing wrong with having the pastoral avenue to go down as well. But they were able to define the differences between them, and they were able to help people understand the differences and the benefits of both. So when we look at what you're talking about, it's like, I struggle with it a little bit, because it was more so accepted from the pathway that I came from, than not, if you see what I mean. I'm not sure if I'm coming from the right angle with this with you. Tell me.
I think when we talk about people needing counseling or being unwell, sometimes we think of the extreme.
So, for instance, I recall my pastor's wife saying that it was easier to advertise a workshop as a well-being workshop than it was to ever mention anything about mental health. It's like the differences, isn't it, between when we say, oh, we're going to have, a prayer evening is going to be, we're going to pray about finances, and you don't have enough space in the hall. for the people who turn up. You know, if you want people to come to a prayer meeting, say, yeah, we're going to cover finances. You know, it makes it sound a little bit shallow, but I'm joking. It's a bit tongue. But in all fairness, if we look at it, I recall her saying that. It's funny because that stuck with me. And she said, if it's to do with us and it's to do with people of color and our people and our culture, you know, call it anything you like, you know, emotion building, you know, dreams, whatever it is, but, you know, well-being. But if you put anything to do with mental health on it, you're more likely not going to have people want to either sign up, engage, you know, or be a part, because of course, yes, the stigma is still there. Now it's opening up again, as I said, a lot more. I mean, the younger, I have the generation that's, again, not wanting to give my age away, but that's a couple of generations down from me. And my goodness, they're just like, no, yeah, I need someone to talk to. Like, you know, and I love it, especially like, you know, some of the young adults from uni, and it's just like, yeah, no, this thing's totally stressing me out, and you know what, like, I'm freaking out, and I love this because they're all their own little counselors, and this is tapping into things, and it's triggering this, and you know, and you know, and I know my relationship stuff is, you know, to do with my dad issues. I know there's stuff like that going on, so yeah, so I want to work with you, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So it's not as bad as it was, but when we come to parents who are pretty strong in the faith, have, I think, titles in the church, the ones who seemingly are supposed to have it all together. Ooh, even as I'm talking now, I can, that resistance, you know, it's still pretty much there. It is. In fact, they would even rather you call it pastoral. They would, you know, sometimes, again, it's like, okay, some people will go through a series of pastoral meetings, you know, and keep coming back to the same thing. Pastoral meetings, coming back to the same thing. Pastoral meetings, coming back to, and this, it makes, you know, it hurts my heart because one, okay, the person in pastoral now becomes a counselor for the person, but may not have all of the skills that they need to, one, keep the person safe, two, keep themselves safe, three, help the person as much as they'd like to. So they can end up feeling slightly inadequate because they're not over pray. Can you over pray? But the praying and the fasting and the thing and whatever, overexerting themselves, and in the spiritual area, and the person, the recipient, could feel like they're a failure. It's to do with my belief. It's my belief. I don't believe enough. I don't believe enough. And not really. It really is, because with therapy, if you're tapping into something and you pick something up, then it will give that thing the whole time of day. Therapy will do that. It will allow the time of day. It will allow the person to explore it, and the therapist can walk alongside, gently ease them along, keeping them safe, ease them along, know the right questions to ask, to help them to open up areas, recognize where there's pain, so perhaps maybe hold them in that area, support them, tell them sometimes what maybe to expect, because it can be a bit scary, but you know, gently walk alongside them until they get to that place of where, you know, you may just end up like, all of a sudden, that scripture suddenly just drops in and just does exactly what it needs to do. Because you've cleared the way. You've made space. You've dealt with some of the pain barriers that have been creating the resistance. And sometimes this is why I say it's not just the therapist. It's not just the hats that the parents wear lots of hats, and the therapist can do their thing, and the pastor can. There's room and space for all of us to be able to help an individual if they need it. That's what they say. It takes a village, right?
To raise a child. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
All right, we've come to time. Thank you again for coming. And I'm sure you'll be back.
Thank you for being gentle with me. But I hope it's been helpful to whoever listens. I hope it does, and I hope people see our hearts. I hope it's helped people to see our hearts as therapists, and especially as Christian therapists, because, as I said, when it works, my goodness, it really does work. When we connect, it's nothing but the Holy Spirit doing the work through us.
Amen. I hope you've been blessed like I have today listening to Sandra. I think what I take away from it is it gives us parents permission to ask our children, would you like to speak to somebody about what you're going through if you feel you cannot share it with me? So I thank Sandra again for coming, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care.
LCBN Television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, C Love World, LCBNTV.com, LifeComTV.com.